What a Wild Spirit Brings by Lil, Chapter 46. Eventually, they did start seeking out items that would actually benefit the trip. Leathers and mud boots, dried foodstuffs. Lil wanted to bring up that they did not need to buy anything with Gim's coppers, for she could just create anything they might have use of during the trip, but remembered the mute woman and her fear of even kind gifts. She was enjoying Gimp liking to like her. She did not want her to fear her, so decided to wait as long as she could to tell her as possible. Eventually, they headed back toward the dome, loaded up with full water skins and bulging sacks of supplies. "Think we have enough?" Gimp asked, juggling things as she walked. "Definitely. Perhaps too much even." "Ha!" Lil replied, giggling a little. "Well, I don't know if Blackstein will come prepared or have need to use our share of travel stuff." "Oh, well, I don't know," Lil said, wondering herself, since she knew Blackstein could not materialize things in the wilder the way she could. "Better to have too much than too little," Gimp said. "Makes sense to me." Just then they rounded a corner close to the dome, and Blacksea herself was on the other side walking toward them, carrying a staff and a sack on her back. She saw them and trotted up, frowning. "What is all this mess?" Lil laughed, and Gimp laughed with her. Blacksea's frown became a puzzled scowl. "Well, that answers that," Gimp merrily said. "Ha ha, sure does." "Answers what? And I want some answers from you, little brave one," Blacksea snapped. Both women stopped laughing. Lil realized Blacksea wasn't irritated about how much they were carrying. Was it about Trixian? "What's wrong, Blacksea?" Lil asked, afraid she knew. "What's wrong? Really? You! You disappear for almost 3 whole months and then show up here, of all places, suddenly, with my grandmother calling you third seat, and you having changed one of the most foundational laws to the nth. You are what's wrong, and now I have to guide you through the Ungar to meet with the Ungar giants and help you with some mission from the Power. Isn't the Power trying to kill you? Why are we helping her when she helped Rutfard? None of this makes sense. You don't even know half of what I do about the Wilder, and now you outrank me as a wild one? How? How? You!" Blacksea swung her fist at her, and Lil wouldn't have been able to dodge it, but the fist stopped dead short of her face, held by air. A glowing yellow rune and a glaring Haldani. The wild one glared back. "I do not know you, but you will not harm little brave one. She described you as being her teacher and friend, but that does not appear to be the case. You might even have valid reasons to be upset, but you will not harm her. If you refuse to be our ambassador, I'm sure the seat of Tri will provide a willing one, seeing as Lil is one of the seat. You may not like it, Blacksea, but she is your leader. Think about that." Lil had big, sad eyes as Blacksea retracted her fists roughly and snorted, then turned and started stomping off toward the Ungar, muttering, "Might as well get this all started on this full trip. Sooner gone, the sooner it'll be over." Lil didn't thank Gimp for stopping Blacksea. Guilt was weighing on her heavily. Everything the woman had said was true, and besides all that, she was sleeping with her sister. What was she going to do when Blacksea found out about that? She would feel better if the Wild One had gotten to strike her. Gone was the laughter of the day. The merry chatter was now just a plodding silence as 2 Greenlander-born women followed a sandwich into the marshes. This didn't feel like a fun adventure anymore. The day was growing short, but they still did manage to get out of sight from the city before nightfall, and it was a learning experience. The swamp was very different to trek through than any other terrain that Lil had ever encountered. One could not walk in a straight line at all, but had to wind and climb from one little clod of earth to the next, often ending up knee-deep in sludge, and the muck sucked at one's legs. Mud boots actually didn't help much, since they kept getting stuck in the ooze while the foot came loose, and then the inside of the outsides of the boots were quickly just as muddy as each other. The air smelled salty, almost like the ocean had smelled on the ship, and almost like vomit as well. There were almost no trees or shrubs, but all the stubby few to be seen were covered in gowns of moss, draping from them like hair, a faded-out green moss that carpeted rocks as well as foliage. There were no animals to be seen, but enough bugs were buzzing and flitting in swarms that it made Lil wish she could just hide in a burlap sack to keep them from biting her skin. The Ungar was a land of mire and rivers. Crossing them waist-deep in trickles and eddies only led one to more stagnant, pungent humidity and odorous liquids unidentifiable. All the thrill of meeting a giant had given way to lament at ever having wanted to come at all. On top of all of the troublesome traversing, Blaxian's glowering never ceased, and she always retained her distance a little way ahead of the others. Lil could tell Gimph was weary, and realized the woman had probably had no rest from her long journey here to the Anthedunes in the first place. Compassion made her want to call to Blaxian to at least slow down, but shame held her tongue. Finally, as darkness settled over the swampy surroundings like a shadow, Blaxian halted on a wide island of dry ground in a sea of muck. Twilight cast an eerie feel to the area and to her face when she half turned her head to peek back at them over her shoulder. Her anger had not subsided. "You two camp here. I'll be over this way if something attacks in the night." And with that, the disgruntled wild one trod over to the next little hill of earth and plopped down without even making a fire. Lil sighed and tried to concentrate on scraping flint to make a cozy fire for poor Gimph. The red was sagging to the ground willingly, breathing heavy and shedding parcels and pouches. "I will set up camp, Gimph. You can relax a little. I am sure the pace will be just as rough tomorrow. Rest up," Lil said, forcing a smile. The woman tried to return it, quick, but rather started rummaging through a sack. As sparks started the kindling, Gimph produced some bread and fruit leather. Lil helped her rearrange all the sacks so they would be easier to take up in the morning, and 2 sleeping bags. They started eating. They chewed in as much silence as they had traveled. They parted ways to go each relieve herself, and then returned to stare at the flames.